I've worked with a lot of great vocal groups, and the thing to understand about recording and mixing background vocals in a singing group is that the background vocals are almost as important as the lead vocals, so it has to be mixed right if you want your music to sound radio ready and polished. To tighten up and mix professional sounding background vocals, you have to combine a whole series of audio processing techniques that I'm going to show you right now. We're going to tighten up the vocal timing, tame the dynamics, fix any pitch issues, and then we're going to give the vocals presence and depth and width to fit nicely into the music production for the song. And there's no way around it. It could be very time consuming, but I'm going to consolidate it all into 14 minutes. Hi, Artie Sky here from the Skylab Music Group in New York City. Like, subscribe, comment, you know what to do, and join our private Facebook group if you want to get more in depth about what we're learning. So here's today's agenda: subgrouping and levels, lining up timing using stretch and drag, using cuts and fades, panning, compression, EQ, effects, soft gating, reverb return, and sidechain delay. So let's dive into the computer. So here's the section of the song we're working with called Monte Carlo by a group I produced called Homage. This part has 10 tracks of vocals, which is 4-part harmony with each girl doubling her part, and 2 tracks of a fake harmony I created from one of the vocals. After importing these vocals, I'll subgroup them so I can process them as a group, which helps glue them all together. Highlight the tracks in the mix window and select the output to the next available bus. First, I'm going to quickly adjust the volume levels of each pair of vocals for a better blend. I want to hear each girl at around the same volume, but of course they didn't sing at the same volume.
Champagne on ice.
Right now, the vocals are right down the center in mono, and there's no effects on them yet.
Meet me in Monte Carlo, baby. These nights. And if you make it worth my while, champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life.
Now let's take a listen to the first section in solo.
These lights, these nights.
That's not too bad for now. Now let's hear the next part.
Champagne on ice.
Much too loose. Some voices are starting and stopping in different places, and maybe even singing the line a little bit faster. First, we have to identify which is the anchor track that we're going to use to line up all of the other tracks to. 95% of the time, it's the first background track recorded, because it's that first track that has to have the right feel, the right phrasing, and the right energy. And then you match all the others to that. So the first one up for this section is Megan.
Champagne on ice.
But let's see how closely her double lines up with her first track.
Champagne on ice.
It seems we have a little problem here with lining up the phrasing. So let's fix it. So looking at this waveform, it seems that she started about right, but sang the line a little too fast. So let's see what happens if we do a little time stretching and line up the peaks. To do that in Logic Pro X, you bring the cursor over the end of the waveform in the region and hold down Option. So we're going to stretch it out a bit until the peaks seem to line up. So let's take a listen.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, Megan's double looks a little low compared to the first one, so I'm going to highlight the region and just bring up the gain control for that region until it looks about right.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, so we got Megan lined up, and now let's listen to Nalu. The first thing we want to do is make sure that Nalu's first track is lined up with Megan. So let's listen together.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, that's pretty tight. So now we'll line Nalu's double up to her first track.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, we can hear and see that her double track was way behind her first track. So in this case, we're just going to drag the actual region so the waveform lines up to the track above.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, close enough for now. Moving on to Dominique.
Champagne on ice.
She's pretty tight with the self, but now let's listen with the other girls in.
Champagne on ice.
The on ice is just a slight bit off. So let's double click the track and turn on flex mode. Then we'll select Flex Pitch, which gives us these little boxes where we can change the pitch, the timing, and more. We're going to drag this piece so the word on comes a bit later.
Champagne on ice.
Now we're going to do the same thing for the word ice.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, and now we have Julia who took on the bass part over here. Let's take a listen.
Champagne on ice.
Okay, now let's hear it paired up with Megan and see how tight it is.
Champagne on ice.
First track seems a little behind, so we're going to move that up.
Champagne on ice.
Now I have a fake harmony that I created from one of the tracks, which matches Dominique's part.
Champagne on ice.
Just thickens that high part up a bit. Now let's hear all the tracks together.
Champagne on ice.
Now that we got the vocals basically blended, let's open up the mixer and do some panning. Hit X to open up the mix window and select all the tracks, and we're going to pan them all to the left. Now we're going to hold down the Command key so we can select the non-adjacent tracks, and we'll highlight the doubles, and we'll pan those to the right.
Champagne on ice.
And there we have a group of girls on each side of us now. One quick note is that the wider a sound is, the closer it appears. So for these backgrounds, I want a little distance, so I don't want all of them panned hard left and hard right. So we're going to bring these in a little more to the center.
Champagne on ice.
With the vocals panned, it's easy to hear if one voice is holding a note too long. So an easy way to fix this is to put a crossfade on so they all end together, which will also clean up the headphone bleed. Highlight all the tracks, select the marquee tool, click in any highlighted region, and it will cut all the tracks at that point. Select the fade tool by hitting escape and scrolling down, then highlighting them all and dragging the fade tool across the region. Now let's listen to the ending.
Champagne on ice.
Much tighter. Let's do the same for the beginning.
Champagne on ice.
I'm still hearing a little too much pitch drift, so I'm going to add a light auto-tune to Megan's right, Nalu's left, Dominique's right, and Julia's left. Tightens it up a bit, but still sounds transparent.
Champagne on ice.
Sounds tighter and a little more polished, but still natural. But my preference is I still want it a little tighter, so I'm popping auto-tune on all the tracks. But remember, this is a light setting. And then we're going to work on the processing. So from this point on, we're only going to be dealing with the subgroup track, not the individual tracks. So the first thing I do is filter out the low end that's below the range of the voices.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
I hear this honky frequency in there, so I'll boost it and sweep through the frequency range until I find the exact frequency I'm looking for.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
Then I'll bring it down a touch until it smooths things out.
Champagne on ice.
Now, I want to compress slightly, but I'm also looking for the warmness that I'm going to get from the Fairchild in addition to the light compression.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
Now that we've dealt with the problems, let's enhance the vocals and give them more presence. I'll pop on the Shep's Omni channel, one of my favorite all-time plugins, and I'll give it a little saturation.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
Brighten it up.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
Okay, so now let's add some FET compression to smooth out that high end that we just boosted and to add a little punch.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
Contour a bit.
Champagne on ice.
So here's the before
Champagne on ice.
and after.
Champagne on ice.
Let's listen with the music.
Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life.
Okay, and now we can hear the vocals popping out of the track. They have presence, they're nice and tight, and they have width. So now we're going to add depth. That means reverbs and delays. So I select the next available bus, and the aux track is automatically created. So I pull a custom channel strip setting down from the menu, which gives me my Lexicon 480L, which I feel is the reverb that's appropriate for what I want. I pull down my preset from the menu and I start customizing it.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
Now I'm going to add a soft gate to the reverb return and use the same vocal subgroup bus as the sidechain input. Now I want the gate to close just a little bit after the girl stops singing so the reverb tail won't hang over and cloud up what's coming next.
Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice. Champagne on ice.
If you look at the waveforms, you'll see that the tail of the gated reverb is much shorter than without the gate. But you'll also notice that some of the valleys, the dips, are a little more prominent in the gated reverb as well. Let's listen with the music, and I'm going to adjust the overall volume of the reverb.
Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life.
Now we're going to add a little bit of delay that I want to hang over after the vocal stops. Select a new bus, and I'll add a stereo delay. The default settings have exactly what I used to use in the analog days, which is an eighth note delay on one side and a quarter note on the other side.
Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life. Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life. Champagne on ice.
Now I like that delay tail hanging over, but I don't want that much delay throughout the actual singing part because it'll just cloud things up. So I'll pull up a compressor, select my preset for the sidechain input, but the same settings work fine with delays as well. Again, I'll use the vocal subgroup bus as the sidechain input, but this time when the vocal is singing, I'll have it compress the delay by about 10 dB. But as soon as the vocal stops, you'll hear that delay pop through.
Champagne on ice.
I'm hearing a little too much sibilance on that delay, so I want to bring down some of the high end. I pop on an EQ, roll off the top, and accentuate the mid-range. Let's listen.
Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life. Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life. Champagne on ice.
I like the space we created with the reverb and the delay. It gives it some nice depth and pushes it further back into the track. But now I lost a little presence, so I'm going to add some chorusing to bring it forward again. I decided to go with the Sound Toys Micro Shift. I fine-tuned a few settings and rolled off some highs on the return. So let's hear the before and after adding the chorusing.
Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life. Champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life.
Now the girls all sound like they're on stage together. They have presence and they have depth. Everyone's on time and on pitch, and you can hear the confidence in the vocals. So let's take a listen to everything together.
It's me and Monte Carlo, baby. These lights, these nights. And if you make it worth my while, champagne on ice. It'll be the time of your life. I'll be the queen of the lights. I'm trying to diamond night. Take you the highest of highs, yeah.
What's wonderful and special about hearing multiple voices in a group is the tonal combinations, the personalities, and the variations of vibrato, pitch, and timing. So be careful, because you can over-adjust, over-edit, and over-tighten, and then you'll lose what makes it special in the first place. Unless, of course, that's the sound you're going for. Listen to other songs in that genre, maybe by the same group, so you have an idea how they like their vocals to be mixed. Do what feels right to you and what's appropriate for the song. If you want to learn more about engineering and music production, please check out the rest of our channel, because we have some great videos on mixing, editing, music production, music career advice, great things for singers as well. Like, subscribe, comment, you know what to do, and join our private Facebook group if you want to get more in depth about what we're learning.